I don't have diabetes, so why on earth do I use a continuous glucose monitoring device to track my blood sugar level? Now, curious about my journey with a CGM over the past 30 days? Trust me, it's not what you might expect. Stick around to find out. Now let me make one thing clear. This video is not sponsored and I'm sharing my genuine experience with you. Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's long form video. Now if you have been following my channel since March or earlier, you would have noticed that I post a number of short videos experimenting with how food affects my blood sugar and measuring them with a CGM. Well, CGM stands for Continuous Glucose Monitoring. Now, the science behind it is to track glucose levels continuously throughout the day and night, and the device measures glucose in the interstitial fluid, that is the fluid between cells, every few minutes. Now the technology is quite simple. A small sensor is inserted under the skin on the arms and it measures glucose level when it touches the interstitial fluid. The sensor is connected to a transmitter that sends the data to a display device or smartphone app. The biggest advantage of a CGM is that it can provide real-time data on glucose levels, trends, and patterns over time. Now, this allows blood sugar monitoring 24/7 during sleep, between meals, and during physical activity. The CGM basically eliminates guesswork and helps people make informed decisions about diet, exercise, and medication. However, cost is a factor because it's typically more expensive than traditional fingerstick blood glucose tests. Some viewers have already asked how accurate CGMs are when they don't directly measure the blood sugar but instead measure the fluid between cells. First, we need to understand that, like any medical device, both CGM and fingersticks have an allowable margin of error within the device. The technical term is MARD, or the mean absolute relative difference. Now on top of that, there are also potential user errors when they are inexperienced with the new device. A 2018 comprehensive article published in European Endocrinology suggests that MARD range across CGM devices on the market 6 years ago was 9 to 15%. Now, in order for a reading to be considered 100% accurate, the MARD would have to be between 3.3% and 5.3%. But remember, that's a measure of technology 6 years ago. Newer devices would likely have better accuracy. So what about fingerstick testing, right? A 2017 study published in the Journal of Diabetes, Science, and Technology reviewed several glucometers and saw a range of MARD from 5.6 all the way to 20%. Now, so why is there such a huge range? The article listed the problems with the testing strips such as expiration, exposure to sun or moisture, and user errors, all of which contributed to the inaccuracy. So for diabetes patients who rely on accurate blood sugar data for insulin dosing, the gold standard is to cross-reference the readings using both CGM and fingersticking. For non-diabetes like me, the first thing I have learned is that using a CGM is not to get a perfect, accurate reading, but instead to learn the overall trend of how the body responds to different foods, activities, and stressors. Knowing the trend over time is much more useful than knowing a blood glucose level at a single time point for me to optimize my overall metabolic health. Now, talking about trends, overall, when I drink liquids or eat food that contains simple sugars or carbs, my sugar level raises very quickly in a sharp spike, but it also drops relatively quickly because there isn't much to digest, and my insulin goes into quick actions to utilize the increased glucose. Now, what is more interesting is that when I test with a complex meal that contains proteins, carbs, fat, and fiber, now, instead of seeing a single spike in sugar level followed by a drop, a complex meal that has a considerable amount of carbs such as rice and wheat-based product almost always give me a biphasic glucose curve. Now, a biphasic glucose curve has two distinct peaks in blood sugar levels. The initial spike happens immediately after carbohydrate intake, and the rapid increase in blood glucose signals my pancreas to release insulin to help the cells use the sugar as energy. A quick drop follows it. Now, the second phase is a more prolonged and steady release of insulin. It helps stabilize my blood glucose levels over time and ensure they return to the baseline. This phase usually lasts a few hours. That is when my cells are uptaking the glucose. So the question is biphasic glucose curve a good thing or a bad thing? Now, in fact, the biphasic pattern is associated with better metabolic health outcomes compared to monophasic curves, which shows only a single peak. Now, this biphasic pattern shows not only a robust initial insulin release, but also sustained glucose management, reflecting higher insulin sensitivity and lower glucose and fasting insulin levels. Now, studies have shown that the absence or alterations of the phases, especially a blunted first phase insulin response, can be an early indicator of type 2 diabetes. Now, this is because it suggests the body's inability to handle glucose loads efficiently, which is the hallmark of diabetes. But it's important to understand that the goal is not necessarily to manipulate the diet to get to a biphasic curve, but rather to maintain stable blood glucose levels without a huge spike or drop. Now, after using CGM for 30 days to observe my personal diet, I have noticed how resistant starch combined with lean proteins give me a better overall glucose trend after meals, and now I have more knowledge to guide my dietary choices. Now, because I'm much more aware of my sugar level and as a surrogate marker for my insulin level throughout the day, I've been more conscious about my eating patterns, especially snacking time. Now, if you have followed my channel long enough, like a few years, you may have already noticed that, well, I've been managing my body weight much better now than back before. Part of my weight struggle has always been with snacks, and I always crave snacks like chips, sometimes candies, and that keeps my blood sugar level high. And when my blood sugar stays high, insulin stays high. And while insulin is a hormone needed to use blood sugar, it also promotes fat storage. The constant high levels of insulin basically lock me in a fat storing stage and makes it much harder to burn off that excess fat even with regular physical training. The CGM not only gives me insight into my food choices, and since it tracks 24/7, I was able to learn how different types of exercises affect my blood glucose. Typically, I do weight or strength training in a fasted state in the morning, and the CGM shows me how my body reacts to release glucose from muscle and mostly the liver to sustain my workout. It also allows me to track my glucose trend before and after cardio exercises, so I know to eat a light pre-workout meal to avoid my blood sugar being too low. The overall result is that I was able to lose an additional 3 to 4% of my body weight in 30 days using CGM to guide my diet and exercise routine. Like all medical interventions, CGM is not without downside and is associated with all CGMs regardless of brand. Now, each CGM is designed to be worn for 10 to 14 days, so this little device stuck on the skin for the entire duration. Some people may have sensitive skins to the adhesive, which prevents them from wearing a CGM for more than 2 to 3 days. I don't feel the itchiness from the adhesive, but when I took off my first CGM, I was still very surprised to see the irritation it had caused in 14 days. The redness around the area was more than I expected. So it's very crucial to change the spot or even rotate the arm for the CGM application. The irritated spot that, however, recovered after 14 days. Now, another small thing about CGM is that it is minimally invasive, but still has invasiveness. Now, I wouldn't say I didn't feel anything during the application. It was a feeling similar to a bee sting, I would say. Also, it's an extra bump on the arm, and so during the first few days of using it, I wasn't paying enough attention. I accidentally bumped into it a few times, and it hurt a lot. Trust me, it does hurt. So here comes the final verdict. Prescription CGMs are approved for diabetes patients, and several companies offer a complete package of monthly subscriptions to CGM and online coach and other means for people who don't have diabetes to holistically manage their nutritional and exercise routines. Now, however, these subscriptions are generally quite expensive for the average consumer. Now, I'm not mentioning the specific companies because, again, this is not a promotional video and I'm not trying to steer you to buy anything here. So, well, I received my CGM as part of my job in diabetes education. That's how I got it. But the US FDA just approved an over-the-counter version of CGM for both non-diabetes and type 2 diabetes patients in early March, and it will be available for sale in the summer of 2024. Now, regardless of how you feel about the FDA and the motive behind this approval, it will open up the opportunity for a bigger population to test out CGM's utility without being compelled to subscribe to a specific wellness company's product. So in these 30 days, I've made better dietary choices and lifestyle modification with CGM. Now, it has also given me the data to allow me to learn more about my personal metabolic health. Now, we are living in a data-driven age, and if you are curious about your metabolic health, CGM can provide that data. But if you are still not sure or you don't know what you will do with that extra health data, I'm here to provide you with that information. So let me know your thoughts on CGM. If you are using it or have used it before, feel free to share what it has been done for you in the comments. And remember, always consult healthcare professionals before making significant changes to diet or exercise routines. That is all for this week, and I hope to see you in my next long and short videos. Take good care. Bye.